Sometimes the smallest gesture, a warm smile, a kind word, a genuine compliment, can completely change someone's day. It can open doors, heal old wounds, and make strangers into friends. But here's the truth. Most of us go through life craving connection, yet not truly knowing how to build it. This is where one book, written nearly a century ago, continues to touch millions of lives. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. This isn't just a book about social tricks or manipulation. It's about something deeper. The quiet art of understanding people, of making them feel valued, respected, and genuinely seen. Dale Carnegie believed that success in life depends far less on what we know and far more on how we treat others. Whether it's in business, friendship, or love, people respond not to logic but to emotion. And when you understand that simple truth, everything about your relationships can change. Carnegie begins with one of the most important foundations, the power of appreciation. Not fake flattery, but real heartfelt appreciation. He says, and I love this line, the deepest urge in human nature is the desire to be important. Think about that for a moment. Every person you meet, from the waiter serving your coffee to the boss who seems distant, is silently asking for one thing, to feel valued. Yet most of us forget this. We rush through life, focusing on ourselves, our goals, our stress. We criticize others easily. We point out mistakes faster than we notice effort. And in doing so, we close the doors that could have led to deeper understanding and trust. Carnegie gives a simple but powerful example. When we criticize someone, even if we're right, it doesn't help. It only makes the other person defensive. No one likes to be told they're wrong. The moment you criticize, you trigger a wall inside them. But when you appreciate, when you notice what's good instead of what's bad, you invite their heart to open. He tells the story of Charles Schwab, one of America's great business leaders in the early 1900s. Schwab said that his greatest ability wasn't in managing steel or numbers, it was in managing people. And his secret, he gave sincere praise. He once said, I consider my ability to arouse enthusiasm among my people the greatest asset I possess. The way to develop the best in a person is by appreciation and encouragement. Pause for a second and imagine that, how different the world would feel if, instead of rushing to correct others, we stop to notice what they're doing right. Appreciation is a quiet form of love, and people blossom in its warmth. Another key lesson Carnegie shares is about understanding rather than condemning. It's easy to judge others, to say he's lazy or she's rude, but Carnegie reminds us that every person behaves a certain way for a reason. If you were in their exact situation, with their struggles, you might act the same. So before judging, he says, try to figure out why they do what they do. That one act of empathy can change how you see everyone around you. He gives an example of Abraham Lincoln, who used to be a harsh critic when he was young. But after a painful experience, when one of his public letters insulted an officer who later died, Lincoln learned to hold back criticism. During his presidency, when generals failed him, he often wrote angry letters but never sent them. He learned that patience and understanding could move hearts more than anger ever could. Carnegie's message here is timeless. People don't need more judgment. They need understanding. When you try to see the world through their eyes, you begin to connect on a human level, and that's where influence truly begins. He also says that to win people, we must focus on their interests, not our own. Most conversations are just two people waiting to speak. We talk about ourselves, our lives, our problems, but the person who truly listens, who asks genuine questions and shows curiosity, becomes instantly likable. Because deep down, everyone wants to be heard. Carnegie tells a story of a dinner he attended where he hardly spoke about himself. He simply listened to a botanist talk about plants. At the end of the evening, the botanist turned to him and said, Mr. Carnegie, you are such an interesting conversationalist. Carnegie smiled, realizing the irony. He had barely said a word. But what made the man feel so good was that he felt heard. And that's the secret. When you make people feel important, when you make them feel heard, they walk away remembering you as someone special. Let's pause here and think, when was the last time you truly listened to someone without waiting to reply? Just to understand them, not to prove anything? That small act of listening can be more powerful than any words you could say. Carnegie also reminds us that names hold a special power. A person's name, he says, is the sweetest sound in any language to that person. Using someone's name is a simple yet deep way to show respect. It says you matter. So next time you talk to someone, a colleague, a shopkeeper, even a stranger, remember their name. Use it with warmth. You'll notice how their face softens, how their tone changes. In one story, Carnegie describes how a simple gesture like remembering a name turned a tense business meeting into a friendly discussion. It wasn't manipulation, it was humanity. It showed that he cared enough to see the person, not just the position. Now, another golden principle he shares is to smile. Yes, something that sounds so small, but carries so much weight. A smile doesn't just change how others see you. It changes how you feel. It creates warmth before a word is even spoken. A sincere smile can melt the hardest moments. Imagine you walk into a room, anxious, unsure, and someone greets you with a warm smile. Instantly, you feel safe. That's the power of small gestures. They communicate something words often can't. Carnegie believed that we are emotional beings before we are rational ones. And every smile, every kind word, every act of understanding, these are emotional currencies. We don't need to be rich or famous to offer them. He wrote that if you want to make real friends, you must first be genuinely interested in others. You can't fake it. People can feel the difference between curiosity and calculation. So be curious about others. Ask about their dreams, their joys, their stories. When you show genuine interest, the connection happens naturally. This might sound simple, but think about how rare it is. Most people don't take that time. So when you do, you stand out. Not because you're extraordinary, but because you make others feel extraordinary. Carnegie often said, you can make more friends in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. That sentence alone captures the spirit of this entire book. Let's reflect for a moment. What if you started tomorrow with just these small changes? Smile more, appreciate more, listen more, use people's names, avoid criticism, understand before judging. They sound simple, but they hold the power to transform every interaction you have. In this first part of our journey through how to win friends and influence people, we're beginning to see that human connection isn't built on clever words or fancy charm. It's built on kindness, respect, and genuine care. Carnegie isn't teaching us to influence in the manipulative sense. He's teaching us to awaken our better selves, the part that seeks harmony rather than victory. Because when you make others feel valued, you don't just win friends, you win hearts, and that's where true influence begins. When you begin to understand people, you realize something beautiful. Everyone deep inside wants to be seen, not judged. Dale Carnegie believed that the key to influencing people isn't found in power, logic, or arguments. It's found in empathy, the kind that makes others feel respected even when you disagree with them. In this part of the book, he goes deeper into the subtle art of making people like you, not by pretending or pleasing, but by creating genuine warmth and connection. He reminds us that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It begins with one simple rule. Be genuinely interested in other people. Think about the people you enjoy being around. What makes them special? Chances are it's not what they own or what they say. It's how they make you feel. When someone remembers small details about you, asks how you've been or listens without interrupting, you feel seen. You feel human. Carnegie often said that the easiest way to make a good first impression is to take genuine interest in others. Not the kind that feels forced or strategic, but the kind that grows from real curiosity. When you meet someone, ask about their world, their hobbies, their passions, their experiences. Let them speak freely. People open up like flowers when they feel someone truly cares. He tells a story about a young salesman who struggled to close deals. The man was smart and hardworking, but his clients rarely connected with him. After reading Carnegie's advice, he changed one simple thing. He stopped trying to sell and started listening. He began each meeting by asking about his clients' businesses, families, or dreams. He wasn't pretending, he cared. Within months, his sales skyrocketed. Why? Because people trust those who make them feel understood. Carnegie believed this principle could transform every relationship, professional or personal. It's a reminder that success in life often comes down to one thing: how well you can make others feel appreciated. He also talks about the magic of smiling, something we touched on before. But here he deepens the meaning. A smile, he says, isn't just a curve on your face. It's a reflection of your attitude. A genuine smile signals kindness, safety, and openness. It tells people, I'm glad to see you. And that feeling is contagious. But Carnegie warns that a smile must come from the heart. You can't fake warmth. People will feel it. To truly smile, you must first think kindly about others. You can't greet the world with joy if your heart is full of irritation. So before you walk into a room, pause. Think something kind about the people you're about to meet. Then your smile will be real, and it will have power. He shares an example from his own life. He once met a clerk who looked cold and distant. Instead of reacting with annoyance, Carnegie smiled warmly and greeted him like an old friend. The clerk's face instantly softened. The energy changed. The transaction that might have been dull or cold turned into a pleasant exchange. That's the quiet power of kindness. It softens hearts that even logic can't reach. Next, Carnegie introduces one of his most famous principles. Remember that a person's name is, to that person, the sweetest sound in any language. This idea might seem small, but it's deeply psychological. A name is more than a word. It's identity, recognition, and belonging. When you use someone's name with respect, you affirm their importance. You remind them they exist in your world. Think about the last time someone addressed you by name warmly. Didn't it feel personal? It's such a simple gesture, yet it carries deep emotional weight. Carnegie urges us to remember and use names sincerely, not just in formal meetings but in everyday life. Whether it's your colleague, your neighbor, or the barista who hands you coffee, calling them by name is a quiet act of respect. Then he talks about listening, truly listening. Carnegie said, if you want to be a good conversationalist, be an attentive listener. It sounds simple, but very few people do it. We often listen just enough to reply, not to understand. But when you really listen, when you give someone your full attention, you give them one of the greatest gifts of all. He tells the story of a woman who attended one of his lectures. She complained that people always seemed bored when she spoke. Carnegie asked her, do you listen to others with full attention? She paused and realized she didn't. She was too busy thinking about what to say next. So she practiced listening deeply, asking questions, showing genuine curiosity. Within weeks, she noticed a shift. People began enjoying her company. Why? Because they felt heard. Carnegie wrote that to be interesting, be interested. When you make someone feel that their story matters, you become memorable. That's why great communicators talk less and listen more. Another principle he shares is to talk in terms of the other person's interests. When we focus only on what we want, conversations feel one-sided. But when we align with what others care about, we connect emotionally. Carnegie said, the royal road to a person's heart is to talk about the things they treasure most. He gives an example of a father trying to connect with his young son. The father was frustrated. His boy seemed distant, uninterested. One day, the father noticed his son loved stamps, so he began collecting with him. That simple act changed everything. They started spending time together, laughing, talking, bonding. The son felt seen, and the father realized that love begins when you enter someone else's world. We often underestimate how much that matters. Whether you're talking to your spouse, your boss, or a stranger, step into their world. Find out what they care about, what makes them light up, what brings them joy. Then speak from there. That's where connection begins. Carnegie also emphasizes the power of making others feel important, sincerely. Everyone longs for significance. You can make someone's day brighter by saying a few honest words of appreciation. It doesn't cost you anything, but it can mean everything to them. But he warns again, never flatter. Flattery is shallow and self-serving. People sense it instantly. Sincere appreciation, however, is real. It comes from truly noticing something good in another person. When you say, I really admire how patient you are, or you always bring such calm energy, you touch the heart because it's true. He tells of an instance where President Franklin D. Roosevelt, before meeting anyone, would study their lives or interests, not to impress them but to show respect. When they spoke, he could mention something meaningful to them, and they would instantly feel comfortable. That's emotional intelligence long before the term even existed. Carnegie reminds us that no matter how busy or important we are, We should never forget the simple human gestures that build trust. Smiles, names, listening, appreciation, these are the building blocks of genuine influence. He also offers a timeless truth about authenticity. The only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. He explains that when we argue, even if we win the point, we often lose the person. No one enjoys being proven wrong. The moment a discussion turns into a fight, egos take over. Facts stop mattering. Feelings do. He tells of a man who once argued passionately with a friend about a quote's author. After an hour of heated debate, the man proved he was right, but lost the warmth of the friendship for weeks. Carnegie says, ask yourself, is it worth it? Is being right more important than being kind? Instead of arguing, he suggests finding common ground. Say things like, I might be wrong, but here's how I see it. Or that's an interesting point, tell me more. These phrases disarm conflict. They show respect. And most of all, they keep conversations human. Carnegie's wisdom isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about creating an atmosphere where people feel heard, respected, and safe, even when you disagree. When you think about it, this is what we all want. We don't need everyone to agree with us. We just want to be respected, to feel that our thoughts matter. And when you give that to others, they naturally give it back. Imagine a world where more of us practice these small principles every day, where we smiled sincerely, listened deeply and cared genuinely, where we tried to understand before judging. That's not just how you win friends or influence people. That's how you make life a little kinder. These lessons may sound simple, but they're the foundation of every lasting relationship. You can't fake them. You live them. And in doing so, you become the kind of person others naturally trust and admire. Because the truth is, people may forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. There's a quiet truth about human nature that Dale Carnegie understood better than most. People almost never change because they were argued into it. They change when they feel understood, respected, and inspired. When someone listens without judgment, when they feel safe to think for themselves, that's when transformation happens. So many of our problems, in work, family, or friendships, come from one simple thing, the need to be right. We argue, we push, we try to convince others that our way is better. But as Carnegie reminds us, even when you win an argument, you often lose something far more valuable: goodwill. He puts it simply, the only way to get the best of an argument is to avoid it. That doesn't mean avoiding truth or suppressing your opinion. It means choosing peace over ego. It means understanding that convincing someone doesn't come from proving them wrong, but from helping them see the truth on their own. Imagine you're in a disagreement. Most people immediately start building their defense, preparing what they'll say next. But Carnegie suggests something radically different. Just listen. Let the other person talk first. Don't interrupt. Don't rush to correct them. Give them the space to express everything they feel. Because the moment they feel heard, their resistance begins to fade. He shares a story of a customer who was angry about a mistake in an order. Instead of defending himself, Carnegie listened quietly, nodded, and acknowledged the man's frustration. When the customer was done, Carnegie said softly, "I would feel exactly the same if I were in your place." That one sentence changed everything. The man's anger melted away. He didn't need a fight. He needed to feel understood. It's such a powerful reminder. Understanding is often more effective than explanation. Carnegie encourages us to admit our mistakes quickly and sincerely. Pride makes us defensive, but humility opens doors. When you say, "You're right, I should have handled that better," you surprise people, because humility disarms ego. Instead of an argument, you create cooperation. He tells of a time he arrived late for a lecture. Instead of making excuses, he began with, "Friends, I must apologize. I completely mismanaged my time today." The audience laughed warmly, and any tension disappeared. He didn't lose respect. He gained it. People trust those who can admit their flaws. Carnegie often reminds us that honesty is magnetic. It's rare, and that's why it's powerful. When you own your mistakes, others feel safe around you. They know you're real. Another technique he shares is to start conversations with agreement, not confrontation. He says, begin in a friendly way. If you want someone to listen, start with things you both agree on. Small points of harmony build a bridge of trust. Then, even if differences remain, the tone stays kind. Think of how different conversations would feel if we all practiced this. Instead of starting with "you're wrong," we began with "I understand where you're coming from." Those few words soften even the hardest hearts. Carnegie also suggests getting the other person to say yes early and often. He called this the Socratic approach. When you start with questions that lead to agreement, you set a positive tone. For example, instead of saying, "This is the right solution," you might ask, "Wouldn't you agree that we both want the same outcome?" Agreement creates momentum. It helps people feel you're on the same side, not against them. And that's the heart of influence, making others feel that you're with them, not against them. He tells a story of a businessman who struggled to persuade clients. After studying Carnegie's methods, the man began asking small, agreeable questions first. Slowly, his clients opened up. They stopped feeling pressured and started feeling part of the idea. Because when people participate in a thought, they believe in it more deeply. Carnegie also shares that when you're wrong, admit it quickly and emphatically. Don't wait, don't defend, just say it. He writes, "By fighting you never get enough, but by yielding you get more than you expected." That's not weakness, and it's strength through humility. He gives an example of his dog, Rufus. Whenever the dog misbehaved and Carnegie scolded him, Rufus didn't argue. He rolled over, wagged his tail, and showed affection. Within seconds, Carnegie couldn't stay angry. He laughed instead. That's human nature. Resistance creates resistance. Warmth creates connection. Now imagine applying that to your life. Next time you're criticized, instead of defending yourself, say, "You're right. I made a mistake." You'll see how quickly the tension disappears. Carnegie teaches that people are far more influenced by attitude than logic. Your tone, your facial expression, your body language, these things speak louder than words. A gentle voice, an open smile, a calm posture. These are signals of peace that draw others in. He also says to let others do most of the talking. It's tempting to dominate a discussion, especially when you think you know the answer. But people value what they discover themselves. If you guide them to their own realization, they'll own the idea far more deeply. He writes, "Let the other person feel that the idea is theirs." This is one of the most elegant truths in communication. When people feel ownership, they become enthusiastic. They commit naturally. There's a beautiful story about Thomas Edison. A young worker once suggested a small change to a machine. Instead of taking credit, Edison told his team, "Let's try Jim's idea." Even though Edison had already planned the same change, he wanted Jim to feel proud of his contribution. Later, that simple encouragement turned Jim into one of Edison's most loyal and creative employees. That's the power of making others feel important. Influence isn't about control. It's about empowerment. Carnegie also teaches the value of seeing things from the other person's perspective. He writes, "Try honestly to see things from the other person's point of view." This may be one of the hardest things to do, but it's also the most rewarding. It means setting aside your assumptions and truly stepping into someone else's experience. For instance, if a co-worker seems uncooperative, instead of labeling them as difficult, ask yourself, what might they be struggling with? Maybe they feel unseen. Maybe they fear failure. When you understand their motive, your heart softens and your response changes. He shares the story of a sales manager who couldn't motivate his team. Instead of pushing harder, he sat down with them one by one and asked about their goals, their families, their worries. He discovered that most of them weren't lazy. They were afraid of losing their jobs. Once he addressed their fears with reassurance, their performance soared. Sometimes all it takes is compassion to turn resistance into cooperation. Carnegie also advises us never to say, "You're wrong," even if you are certain. Those two words trigger defensiveness. Instead say, "I may be mistaken. Let's look at it together." That small shift changes the tone completely. It shows humility and curiosity instead of ego. He believed that the moment someone feels attacked, logic dies. But when they feel respected, logic thrives. That's why true influence is quiet, not loud. He also emphasizes the importance of letting others save face. When someone makes a mistake, don't humiliate them. Give them a way to maintain dignity. For example, instead of saying, "You failed to do this," you can say, "Perhaps I didn't explain it clearly enough." This not only preserves their confidence, it builds loyalty. People remember kindness in their vulnerable moments. One of the most touching parts of Carnegie's philosophy is this: people long to feel capable. When you protect their dignity, you give them that gift, and in return you earn their trust. He goes even further to say that you should praise even the slightest improvement. He writes, "Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise." In simple words, notice the small wins. Encourage progress. People thrive on positive attention. When you recognize effort, not just results, you build momentum. He tells of a struggling student in one of his courses. Instead of pointing out his weak delivery, Carnegie praised the clarity of one sentence. The student smiled, and next week he improved dramatically. People rise to the level of belief others place in them. He reminds us, criticism wounds, but encouragement heals. You don't push people by tearing them down. You lift them by showing them what's possible. These lessons may seem simple, but they touch something eternal, the human heart. We all want to be respected, to be heard, to be appreciated. And when we give these things to others, life responds in kind. At its core, how to win friends and influence people isn't about charm or persuasion. It's about choosing kindness when ego tempts us to fight. It's about humility when pride wants control. And it's about empathy, the invisible bridge that connects one soul to another. When you truly live these principles, you stop needing to win people. You start winning their trust, their respect, their affection. Because the truth is, influence isn't something you take. It's something others give you willingly when they feel seen and valued. The real test of influence isn't how well you speak. It's how gracefully you lead. Dale Carnegie believed that leadership isn't about commanding people. It's about inspiring them. It's about helping others become their best selves, not through fear or authority, but through encouragement and trust. In every relationship, at work, at home, or among friends, there comes a moment when you need to guide someone, correct them, or ask for change. Most people handle these moments poorly. They criticize, they demand, or they threaten. And while they might get short-term results, they lose something far more valuable: respect. Carnegie teaches that if you want people to improve, you must first help them feel capable of improving. He wrote, "A person's name is to that person the sweetest sound in any language." But he also said something equally profound: a person's dignity is more fragile than glass. Once you crack it with harsh words, you can't easily fix it. So how do you correct someone without hurting their pride? Carnegie's answer is gentle and wise. Begin with praise. Before you point out a mistake, sincerely recognize what they're doing right. This sets a tone of respect and goodwill. It tells them, "I see your effort. I value you." He gives an example of a manager who had to discipline an employee for being careless. Instead of starting with criticism, the manager said, "You've been one of our most dependable workers for months. Your dedication really stands out. That's why I was surprised to see that small mistake in your report. It's not like you." The employee didn't feel attacked. He felt trusted. And that trust motivated him to fix the error without resentment. That's the magic of starting with appreciation. It opens the heart before you deliver the truth. Carnegie suggests another simple but powerful idea. Talk about your own mistakes before criticizing others. When you admit that you've stumbled too, you remove the wall between you and them. You become a partner, not a judge. He shares a story from his own life. During a class he taught, one of his students gave a poorly prepared speech. Instead of saying that was bad, Carnegie smiled and said, "I remember my first speech. I was so nervous I forgot what I was supposed to say." The class laughed softly. The tension vanished. Then he gently offered tips for improvement. The student didn't feel ashamed. He felt encouraged. And that made all the difference. People learn best in an atmosphere of acceptance, not fear. Carnegie reminds us that pointing out mistakes indirectly is far more effective than blunt criticism. You can say, "You did well here, but I think this part could be even better," instead of, "This is wrong." The tone changes everything. He quotes an old saying, "A drop of honey catches more flies than a gallon of gall." In other words, kindness achieves what anger never can. When you speak gently, people listen. When you speak harshly, they shut down. Carnegie also suggests letting others save face, even when they're clearly wrong. Public embarrassment is one of the deepest wounds you can cause. If you need to correct someone, do it privately. Protect their dignity. Give them the space to recover gracefully. He tells the story of a factory worker who made a costly mistake. Instead of humiliating him in front of others, his supervisor quietly called him aside and said, "You've been doing such great work lately. I know this was just an accident. Let's fix it together." The man worked twice as hard afterward, not because he feared punishment, but because he wanted to prove himself worthy of that kindness. Carnegie explains that this approach works because it honors human pride. People don't respond to shame. They respond to belief. He also emphasizes giving honest appreciation for even the smallest improvement. Many leaders wait for perfection before they praise someone. But Carnegie says, be lavish with your praise. If someone takes a small positive step, acknowledge it. That tiny spark of recognition fuels motivation more than any punishment ever could. He writes, praise the slightest improvement and praise every improvement. Be hearty in your approbation and lavish in your praise. Think about that. Be hearty. Don't just say it politely. Mean it. Let people feel that you truly notice their growth. He tells of a teacher who had a failing student. Instead of scolding him for his poor grades, she praised the neatness of his handwriting. The boy smiled. The next week his homework improved. Soon his grades began to rise. Why? Because someone finally noticed what he was doing right. Carnegie believed that encouragement has the power to awaken potential that criticism buries. He also shares another key lesson: give others a fine reputation to live up to. In other words, tell people who they are at their best and they'll try to live up to it. He gives an example of a foreman who struggled with a lazy worker. Instead of threatening him, the foreman said, "You're too good a man to let this slip. I've always admired how thorough you can be." The worker straightened up immediately. That gentle compliment created a new identity, one he wanted to live up to. It's one of Carnegie's most beautiful insights. People become what we believe them to be. When you see the good in them, they start to see it too. He also advises giving clear, gentle guidance instead of orders. Instead of saying, "Do this," say, "Would you mind helping me with this?" Or, "Do you think we could try this approach?" These small shifts in language make people feel included, not commanded. He learned this lesson from a ship captain during World War I. The captain never barked orders. He asked questions. "Do you think it would be wise to adjust the sails?" He would say. His crew respected him deeply because he treated them as partners, not subordinates. And the results? The crew performed with pride and unity. Carnegie believed that real leadership is quiet influence. The best leaders don't demand obedience. They inspire cooperation. He also said that when you want someone to change, make the fault seem easy to correct. If you tell someone their mistake is huge, they'll feel defeated. But if you say, "This is just a small fix, I know you can handle it," they'll rise to the challenge. He tells a charming story of a young woman who worked as a secretary. Her boss constantly criticized her typing mistakes, and her confidence dropped. When he attended one of Carnegie's lectures, he changed his approach. The next time she made an error, he said, "You've been typing so accurately lately, this one surprised me. You must have been in a hurry." She smiled, corrected it, and her accuracy improved dramatically. One kind word restored her self-belief. Carnegie's wisdom is simple. People thrive when they feel trusted. If you treat someone as capable, they'll do their best to prove you right. He also shares a beautiful truth about motivation. Make the other person happy about doing what you suggest. This doesn't mean manipulation. It means helping them see the personal benefit and purpose in the task. For instance, if you're asking someone to work late, don't say, "You have to finish this tonight." Say, "If we can get this done today, it'll make tomorrow so much easier for both of us." The goal stays the same, but the tone changes completely. You're creating partnership instead of pressure. He gives the example of Charles Schwab, the famous steel executive, who never ordered his workers. Instead, he inspired them. When production slowed, he didn't yell. He simply asked one team, "How many heats did you make today?" They said 6. He wrote 6 in chalk on the floor. When the next team arrived, they asked, "What's that?" Schwab said, "The day shift made 6. That night, the new team made 7. By the next day, the number was 8. Without a single order or threat, performance soared. all through friendly competition and pride. Carnegie admired this kind of leadership, the kind that motivates through challenge, not control. When people feel part of something meaningful, they give more of themselves. He believed that a leader's job is not to criticize mistakes, but to build belief. He once wrote, "Abilities wither under criticism, but they blossom under encouragement." That's not just philosophy, it's a fact of human psychology. People repeat the behaviors that get them appreciation. Let's pause for a moment and imagine how our world would change if everyone led this way, if bosses encouraged instead of scolded, if parents guided instead of punished, if friends uplifted instead of judged. How much softer, kinder, and more inspired life would feel. Carnegie's principles aren't just about social success, they're about healing human disconnection. He teaches us that every person you meet carries an invisible sign that says, "Make me feel important." And when you honor that, you touch something sacred in them. At its heart, leadership is love in action, the ability to see the potential in others and bring it out with patience and kindness. Carnegie ends this part of his teaching with a quiet but profound reminder. Influence doesn't come from position, it comes from compassion. The greatest leaders, from teachers to parents to presidents, are those who make others believe in themselves. Because when you help someone see their worth, you're not just winning a friend or shaping behavior, you're changing a life. And that, Dale Carnegie believed, is the truest form of influence there is. There's a quiet truth that echoes through every page of How to Win Friends and Influence People. The way we treat others shapes the quality of our own lives. Dale Carnegie didn't just write a book about winning friends, he wrote a manual for becoming a better human being. He wanted us to understand that success isn't built on clever words or sharp strategies. It's built on something much simpler: the warmth in your smile, the sincerity in your praise, and the patience in your heart. He reminds us that people don't respond to logic alone. They respond to emotion, to kindness, to the feeling that they matter. If you make others feel valued, you'll not only win friends, you'll win trust, cooperation, and genuine respect. As Carnegie said, when dealing with people, remember, you are not dealing with creatures of logic, but with creatures of emotion. That single line captures the essence of his philosophy. Think about it. Most conflicts, failures, and misunderstandings happen because we forget this truth. We talk to people's minds, not their hearts. We argue instead of understanding. We want to be right instead of being kind. And in doing so, we lose what matters most: connection. Carnegie's lessons are a reminder that influence doesn't mean control. It means harmony. It means learning how to see through another person's eyes, to feel what they feel, and to speak in a way that honors their dignity. He taught that if you want cooperation, you must build it on understanding. If you want loyalty, you must first give respect. And if you want influence, you must earn trust, not demand it. One of Carnegie's most beautiful teachings is that every person you meet has something to teach you. When you approach people with genuine curiosity, you open the door to learning, growth, and friendship. He said that the best way to be interesting is to be interested. Ask questions, listen, pay attention. When people feel heard, they open up, not just with their words, but with their hearts. Carnegie shared countless stories of ordinary people who transformed their relationships simply by learning to listen with empathy. There's one story about a man who attended one of Carnegie's courses. He admitted that his marriage was falling apart. His wife felt unheard and unappreciated, so he decided to try a simple experiment. For 1 week, he stopped talking about himself. Instead, he listened. He asked his wife questions about her day, her feelings, her memories. He listened without interrupting or trying to fix anything. By the end of that week, she looked at him and said, "You've changed. You actually care." Nothing magical happened, just attention, patience, and care. But that was enough to rekindle love. That's the power of human connection when we truly listen. Carnegie's wisdom doesn't just make you more likable, it makes you more peaceful. When you stop trying to win arguments, you stop wasting energy on ego battles. When you stop judging others, you open your mind to understanding. And when you focus on giving appreciation, you fill your own heart with gratitude. He once said, Any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, but it takes character and self-control to be understanding and forgiving. That's the real secret of emotional maturity. It's easy to point out flaws. It's easy to find faults. But it takes wisdom to rise above anger and see the humanity in others. When you learn to do that, your relationships transform, not because others change, but because your perspective does. Carnegie's book is filled with techniques, yes, but underneath every technique lies a deeper truth: love people. Genuinely, wholeheartedly, selflessly. Say thank you more often. Smile at strangers, remember names, be curious about someone's story, speak less, listen more. Never make someone feel small, and when someone makes a mistake, remember, you've made your own too. The art of winning friends, as Carnegie explains, is really the art of being human. He shares stories of great leaders, Lincoln, Schwab, Roosevelt, all of whom practiced this art not through dominance, but through humility. Abraham Lincoln, for example, learned the hard way that harsh criticism achieves nothing. Early in his career, he wrote a furious letter attacking a political rival. Later, he regretted it deeply. In time, Lincoln became known for his gentleness, his patience, and his ability to forgive even his enemies. Carnegie admired that transformation. He believed that strength doesn't come from pride, it comes from compassion. And perhaps that's the heart of Carnegie's message. When you choose kindness, you don't become weaker, you become unstoppable. Because kindness builds bridges that arrogance never can. He reminds us that our greatest power lies not in forcing others, but in inspiring them. A manager who inspires gets loyalty. A parent who inspires earns respect. A friend who inspires wins trust. And a human being who inspires others to be kind creates a ripple that never ends. Carnegie often said that he wasn't teaching people how to manipulate others. He was teaching them how to live with empathy. He once told a student, "If you take only one thing from my course, let it be this: think more about others and less about yourself." That single shift in focus can change everything. He believed that the secret to influence is generosity, giving your time, your attention, your words, your care, and in return, life gives you back far more than you could imagine: peace, friendships, opportunities, love. Think about the people you admire most in your life. They're probably not the loudest or the richest. They're the ones who make you feel seen, the ones who listen without judgment, the ones who lift you when you're low. Those are the real influencers, the ones who touch hearts, not headlines. Carnegie's lessons are timeless because they speak to the oldest truth in the world, that being human at its best is about giving warmth to others. He encourages us to practice his principles daily, not as tricks, but as habits. Smile when you greet people. Show genuine appreciation. Remember small details. Avoid unnecessary criticism. Make others feel important. Listen more than you speak. And most importantly, mean what you say. Sincerity can't be faked. People can sense it instantly. When your appreciation comes from the heart, it shines through. As you continue to live these ideas, something subtle begins to happen. The world around you softens. People respond differently. Opportunities start to appear. Why? Because the energy you give out, kindness, patience, respect, always returns to you. Carnegie didn't just want readers to win friends or gain influence. He wanted them to become a light in a world often clouded by ego and misunderstanding. He once wrote, "The world is full of people who are grabbing and self-seeking. So, the rare individual who unselfishly tries to serve others has an enormous advantage. He has little competition." That's his secret formula. Not manipulation, not tactics, just sincere service. Help others, understand them, appreciate them, and life will quietly reward you in ways you never expected. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to heal something: a hurt, a misunderstanding, a loneliness. Every smile you give, every kind word you share becomes a seed. Some seeds bloom immediately, others take time, but they always grow. By the end of the book, Carnegie's message feels less like advice and more like a gentle philosophy of living. Treat people the way you wish to be treated, with patience, warmth, and respect. If you do, friendships will form naturally, Opportunities will unfold easily and your world will feel more peaceful. Because when you focus on making others feel valued, you end up discovering your own value too. Dale Carnegie's timeless. Wisdom reminds us that in a world where everyone wants to be heard, the rarest gift you can give is listening. In a world that demands perfection, the kindest thing you can offer is understanding. And in a world obsessed with success, the greatest victory is simple: being kind. So, as this journey through how to win friends and influence people comes to an end, remember this: the smallest gestures often create the biggest changes. One smile, one kind word, one sincere compliment. These are the quiet forces that build a beautiful life. Let this book not just stay as knowledge, but become a part of who you are. Practice these principles, live them, let them shape the way you see others and the way you see yourself. And if this story touched your heart, if it helped you see people a little differently, I invite you to join me on this journey of learning and reflection. Subscribe to Book Summary 101, where we explore the wisdom hidden in every great book, in a way that feels human, emotional, and true. Because knowledge can change your mind, but understanding can change your life.